Okay, this is chapter 1.4, multiplying integers. I've written it out so that you don't have to watch me write it. It's a little quicker that way. The product of two integers with the same sign is positive. Okay, product is a multiplication problem. The product of two integers are all those numbers, -1, 0, 17, -32, all of those numbers are integers, and the product of two integers with the same sign is positive. The product of two integers with a different sign is negative. And let's just take a real quick look. You know that 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, and you know that that's two products. Sorry, that's two numbers with the same sign. This is the first one. It's a positive times a positive. We could rewrite that as a positive 3 times positive 5. This is not plus. It's the hard part. We've got to make sure that you understand. If I write a 3, that's positive. If I write a -3, I have to put a negative sign on it. Okay, so we have a positive 3, and I don't really like to use this x because we're getting into algebra, and I like to use our parentheses or even our dot, which 3 dot. You have to make sure it doesn't look like a 0.5. So that's 15. And this is 15, and this is 15. They're all 15. It's positive times a positive is a positive answer. But this says the same sign. So what happens if I have a -3 times a -5? Okay, the -3 times a -5 is also a positive 15. Okay, and if I were to write that out, -3 times a -5, it's also 15. Okay. Now, so we have a positive times a positive, and we can write it like this. Positive times positive is positive. Negative times a negative is positive. So if they're both the same, it's positive. If they're different, like a positive times a negative, that's going to be negative. Or a negative times a positive, that's also going to be negative. And that's really all you have to know is these two. It's this or that. Same, sane, I am, same, different. Okay. Now back to our 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. -3 times -5 is 15. Positive 3 times -5 is -15. And -3 times positive 5 is also -15. You can see that. Can I make it work with a number line? You bet I can. Let's use this one on a number line. Let me change over to this tool. This one on a number line. 3 times -5 is really just -5 plus -5 plus -5. Remember, multiplication is just repeated addition. So if I started at 0 and I had to start with a -5, I'd go backwards 5. And that would be -5. And I'd have to go backwards another -5. That would be -10. My pen is not working as well as I think it should be. This was -5. And then if I went backwards another 5, I would make it to -15. And you can see that 3 -5s starts at 0 and goes back to -15. You can see how that works. Okay, so we'll just do a couple of real quick examples and see what happens. They do it like this in the book: -5 times a times dot, and then they use a parenthesis, -6. So they're both negative. 5 times 6 is 30. And then I have to think, okay, they're both the same, so it's positive. And I'm done. Product is positive. What about 3 times a -4? This looks like this. This is still multiplication. And this is what's funny, is you have to get used to recognizing multiplication instead of addition when you see it. This is not 3 minus 4. This is 3 times a -4. And 3 times 4 is 12. But because we have a positive here, it doesn't show a positive, but it is, and we have a negative here, they're different, and that means our answer is negative. Okay? Negative 4, negative 7 times 4. Negative 7 times 4. Again, another way to write it. It still looks like multiplication to me. 7 times 4 is 28, and we have to remember there's one negative and one positive, so they're different. That means that our answer is negative. That's basically just how it goes, on and on and on like that. Now we're going to throw some exponents at you. Hopefully you remember exponents. Negative 2 to the third power. Now, in the same way that multiplication is just repeated adding, exponents is repeated multiplying. So when you see negative 2 to the third power, that is the same as negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay? And when we have that, that means that it's negative 2 times negative 2. So that would be positive 4 times negative 2. See, these two turned into that one. And then we do it one more time. Positive 4 times negative 2 would be a negative 8, because there's one more negative and one positive, and it changes it back. So you can see if we have 3 negatives, it goes to positive and then it goes back to negative again. Now the book gave you one that was a little simpler, and I sort of skipped it over. It's negative 2 to the second power, which is negative 2 times negative 2, which is equal to positive 4. So that's what the book said. Then they go ahead and they give you another one, negative 5 to the second power. Now this is tricky. This is why we're showing you this is negative 2 times a negative 2. This is not negative 5 times a negative 5. And the parenthesis is what helps us make the difference. Remember, our order of operations, parentheses come very first. So this negative 2 stays put, and our second power applies to both of them. And here, we don't have parentheses to deal with, but we do have a power. And a power comes before multiplication. It also comes before subtraction. This is really negative 5 times 5. Okay? 5 to the second power is 5 times 5. And this negative sign, and this is important, you're going to have to watch this maybe a couple of times if you don't get it right away to make sense of it. So our 5 times 5 is 25, and we hold on to our negative sign. If I had done it negative 5 to the second power, kind of like I did it up here, this is a little different. This is negative 5 times negative 5, which becomes positive 25. So in this case we get a positive answer, and in this case we get a negative answer, and you have to be able to tell the difference, or you're going to be very confused and you're going to have some wrong answers. They've got one more, negative 4 to the third power, and again that's just negative 4 because we have a parenthesis. We're going to hang on to it, and that negative sign is going to be in each one of those. There's 3 of them, and I just work on the first one first. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then I have one more negative 4 to multiply. And 16 times 4 is 64. But because this one's positive and that one's negative, I keep the negative sign. And if you get confused, you're going to have to come to see me, because there's easily confused on this kind of assignment, because you get it right one time, you get it wrong another time, and it has to do with whether or not you actually understand the principle and the concept. So we'll talk about it, we'll give you some practice, and we'll see what works.